get that feeling that things are just more expensive than they should be? You walk into the grocery store and the price for a 12-pack of soda or beer just feels heavier. You look at the cost of a new pickup truck, or even just the repair bill for the one you've driven for 10 years, and you wonder how things got this high. You hear the promises on television, promises about protecting American jobs, promises about getting tough on trade, promises about making American manufacturing strong again. And you want to believe it. We all do. We want to see those factories in Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania thriving. We want to know that our communities are secure. But then you look at your grocery bill, you look at that repair bill, and the promise feels disconnected from your reality. That feeling is real. That frustration is justified. And what I'm here to tell you today is that it's not an accident. It's not just inflation. In many cases, the pain you are feeling is the direct result of the very policies that promise to protect you. Today, we are going to follow the money. We are going to uncover a hidden tax that you are paying. A tax that isn't on any receipt. A tax that was triggered by the 2025 aluminum tariffs. It's called the U.S. Midwest Premium. And in this hypothetical scenario, it just spiked 82%. Module 1. The promise versus the reality. Let's be clear about the promise. The original script laid out a 2025 scenario where a 50% tariff was placed on Canadian aluminum. The goal, stated publicly, was to protect American manufacturing jobs. It was designed to punish our #1 competitor in aluminum, who is also, ironically, our closest ally, Canada. The strategy was simple. America's $12.8 billion aluminum industry, based in places like Quebec, was almost entirely dependent on American buyers. They sent 95% of their products south, across the border. The tariff trap was set. By imposing a 50% tax, the administration believed Canada would break, that their industry would collapse, and they would be forced to come to the bargaining table begging for mercy. That was the promise. But that is not what happened. As the original script correctly stated, Trump's strategy damaged American manufacturing. It backfired. The trap didn't catch the intended target. It snapped shut on the American worker instead. And it all started because Canada refused to play their assigned role. Module 2. The hypothetical catalyses. When the 50% tariff hit, the Canadian government and its industry did not panic. They didn't beg. They pivoted. In this scenario, 50,000 tons of high-quality aluminum that was supposed to be in American factories, was redirected. It was loaded onto ships and sent across the Atlantic to new buyers in Europe, buyers in Rotterdam, in Italy, in Germany, who welcomed them. Canada's share of the European market exploded from 0.2% to 18%. Their workers in Quebec kept their jobs. Their communities remained stable. This video is not about Canada's victory. This video is about the price America paid for that victory. Because when those 50,000 tons of aluminum left the North American market, it left a hole. It created a scarcity. And that scarcity, that sudden gaping hole in our own supply chain, is what lit the fuse on an economic bomb right here at home. Module tries unpacking the US Midwest Premium, the plus possession percent value. Now, we are going to talk about the one thing that truly matters in this story. It's the hidden mechanism that transfers this policy failure directly into your wallet. The US Midwest Premium. I know, it sounds complicated. It sounds like something economists talk about on cable news. Forget the name. Let me tell you what it really is. It is a hidden delivery fee. That's all. When a factory, say a company in Ohio that makes car parts, or a plant in Indiana that makes beer cans, wants to buy aluminum, they look at two prices. First, there is the paper price. That's the official price of aluminum set on a computer screen in London, at the London Metal Exchange, or LME. But that factory in Ohio can't use a paper contract in London. They need a real 50-ton block of physical aluminum delivered to their factory door. The extra cost to get that physical metal from a port or a smelter and get it trucked to their factory. And that is the premium. The US Midwest Premium. It's the cost of shipping, the cost of insurance, the cost of warehousing, and most importantly, the cost of scarcity. Now, for decades, there was one single reason that this delivery fee was low and stable. One reason: Canada. Canada is, and has always been, America's #1 supplier of aluminum. They are right next door. Their smelters in Quebec are efficient. They are reliable. They were the anchor. They were the bedrock of the entire American aluminum supply chain. Their cheap, reliable aluminum flowed south and kept the U.S. Midwest premium low for everyone. It kept that delivery fee predictable. It allowed your local beer company and your local auto plant to plan their costs. Now, let me ask you a simple question. What happens when you take your single biggest, cheapest, most reliable supplier and you suddenly cut them off at the knees with a 50% tax? What happens when you cut the anchor? The entire system breaks. Part 3B, the 2018 case study, the fact-check proof. You might think an 82% spike. The number from the original 2025 scenario sounds exaggerated. You might think it sounds like fear-mongering. But the reason this story is so important is because this has already happened. This is not a theory. This is history. Let's rewind the clock to 2018, per Fact Check 1. When the Trump administration imposed the Section 232 tariffs, back then, the tariff wasn't 50%. It was only 10%. A 10% tax on aluminum, including from Canada. What happened to that hidden delivery fee? The U.S. Midwest premium. It didn't just go up 10%. It exploded. According to market data from S&P Global and Harbor Aluminum, the premium, that delivery fee, spiked by 60%, 80%, and at its peak, nearly 100%. It doubled. It went from a normal 10 cents a pound to over 20 cents a pound. Think about that. A 10% tax created a 100% spike in the hidden premium. Why? Because the 10% tax didn't just add a fee. It created panic. It created scarcity. It cut off the anchor. Every factory in America scrambled, terrified to find new supply. And when they all scrambled at once, the few suppliers left, the traders, the warehouses, could charge whatever they wanted for that delivery fee. This wasn't a tariff. This was a panic tax. A tax on American factories. A tax on American businesses. Now, let's go back to our 2025 scenario. If a 10% tariff in 2018 caused a 100% spike, what do you think a 50% tariff does? The 82% spike in this story, the aluminum price spike 2025, isn't just plausible. It's conservative. This is the very definition of a protectionism failure. This is the cost of tariffs. Who pays the price? So, who gets rich? Who profits from this 82% surge in the hidden delivery fee? This is the part they don't tell you. The money doesn't go to the U.S. government. The tariff is on the import, but the premium is a domestic price. The money doesn't go to the American aluminum worker. No. The money goes to the commodity traders. It goes to the middlemen. It goes to the international warehouses. It goes to the few other aluminum producers who can now charge American factories more, simply because they can. They profit from the panic. And who pays for their profit? The American factory, the American small business, the American manufacturer, and, ultimately, who pays the factory? You do. This is, quite simply, self-inflicted damage. Module 4. The real-world impact. An 82% spike in a premium still sounds distant. So let's make it real. Let's talk about the items on your kitchen table. Part 4A. The story of the beer can. Let's talk about a simple can of beer, or a can of soda. For a company like Anheuser-Busch or Molson Coors, or for the can maker themselves, Ball Corporation, aluminum is the single biggest cost. It is everything. When that hidden delivery fee spikes by 82%, they can't eat that cost. They are not a charity. They have to pass it on. Don't take my word for it. Go back to 2018. The CEO of Ball Corporation, the world's largest can maker, publicly stated that the 10% tariffs and the exploding MWP cost his company hundreds of millions of dollars. The CEO of Molson Coors, the people who make Miller Lite and Coors Light, said the exact same thing. They said, this cost will be passed on to the consumer. So when you go to the store and you see the beverage can, price is keyword, climbing, that's not just inflation. That is the hidden tax. That is the cost of tariffs. That is the sound of Trump tariffs backfire, K-word. Part Nelyab, the story of the pickup truck. Now let's talk about something bigger. Let's talk about the heart of American work. The pickup truck. The Ford F-150, the Chevy Silverado. For the last decade, These trucks have been built with aluminum bodies. It makes them lighter, more fuel efficient. It was a brilliant piece of American engineering, but it also made them completely vulnerable to this hidden tax. When the 10% tariffs hit in 2018, the auto industry was staggered. Ford Motor Company, the pillar of Dearborn, Michigan, reported that the tariffs on steel and aluminum cost them $1 billion. $1 billion. General Motors, the heart of Detroit, reported the same thing. Another $1 billion. Where does $1 billion in new cost come from? It doesn't come from the CEO's bonus. It comes from the sticker price of the new truck you want to buy. It comes from the auto parts inflation, keyword, on the fender you need to replace. It comes from the farmer in Iowa or the rancher in Texas who now has to pay more for the exact same machine. Part 4C, the final, painful irony, the job paradox. But here is the most painful, the most twisted, the most tragic irony of all. The entire point of this policy, the promise sold to the American people, was to protect American manufacturing costs, keyword. It was to save American workers impacted, keyword. But think about this. If you are Ford Motor Company, and your American manufacturing costs, keyword, just went up by $1 billion, but your competitors in Germany, or Japan, or Korea, are not paying that $1 billion. And in fact, in our 2025 scenario, they are now buying that cheap Canadian aluminum that you used to get. Who wins? You lose. The American factory loses. The American worker loses. When a company's costs go up by $1 billion, they don't hire more people. They look for cuts. They lay people off. Or they do the one thing the policy was designed to prevent. They look at that factory in Michigan, and they look at a new factory in Mexico, where they can get aluminum without the 82% hidden tax. And they move. The policy designed to stop jobs from leaving America actively creates the mathematical incentive for them to leave. This is the textbook definition of protectionism failure. This is the definition of self-inflicted damage. It didn't just fail to protect the American worker. It painted a target on their back. Module 5. Conclusion and thesis. So, yes, the Trump tariffs backfire. They didn't just fail to protect American jobs. They actively damaged them. They actively hurt the people in the small towns, in the rural communities, on the factory floors. By cutting off our most stable, reliable, and cheapest supply of aluminum, this policy triggered a hypothetical 82% domestic price crisis. A crisis that is being paid for. Not by politicians, but by you. It's being paid for in the price of your beer, in the price of your truck, and in the security of your job. Module 6. Resonance Loop and Flywheel CTA. We've shown you the data. We've shown you the history. We've shown how these national policies become your local problem. So we have to ask you, do you believe the government's trade policies are helping or hurting your local community? What are you seeing on the ground? Share your story, your experience in the comments below. And remember, this 82% spike in aluminum is just the beginning of the story. This hidden tax, this premium, it's affecting the price of everything, from your car parts to your groceries. To understand exactly how that hidden premium is impacting your wallet every single day. Be sure to watch our next video, The Real Reason Your Beer Costs More in 2025. Thank you for watching.